So I get asked this question a lot. What do you think about the Olympic lifts? Do you use them? Do you think they're important? Do you use them a lot with your athletes? So since I get asked this question a lot, and since my opinion on Olympic lifting has changed a lot throughout my career, I want to bring this information and give you guys a little bit more info on what I use the Olympic lifts for, what I think they're beneficial for, and when I do and don't use them in my training program. When I first got started in strength and conditioning, I was all about the Olympic lifts. I love training Olympic lifts. It's something that I did when I was playing football that really got me a lot stronger and more explosive, more powerful, so I believed in their effectiveness. And the program that I was with was an Olympic-based program, so we did Olympic lifts every day. With all of my teams, I always programmed the first movement of the day was an Olympic movement. Since then, I've gotten to the point now when I barely use Olympic lifts at all, and I'll tell you why. Olympic lifts are excellent exercises. They can increase explosiveness, they can improve mobility, they can improve strength. There's so many benefits to Olympic lifting, but they're very, very, very technical. If you've ever done Olympic lifts, if you've ever tried to teach Olympic lifts to younger kids or to groups of people, you know what I'm talking about. They're very technical. So when I started working in the private sector, what I realized was they were taking so much time in my training sessions for me to be able to try to get an athlete to the point where they were able to perform the movement effectively enough that they were going to get something out of it and not get hurt. And when you only have maybe 2 hours a week with an athlete and you have to get them stronger, faster, better conditioned, you need to warm them up, you need to cool them down, you need to stretch them out, you need to do so much different stuff, you just don't have any time to waste. You have to find a way to be most efficient with your time. So I started kind of getting away from Olympic lifting when I was in the private sector, and I started realizing that most of the athletes I was working with, particularly high school, college kids, they didn't really need the Olympic lifts. I was still able to improve their strength and improve their power really, really easily and in a lot simpler method. So kind of one of the questions I've always asked myself that's helped me throughout my career is, can I achieve the same goal more effectively, easier, or safer? And if the answer is yes to any of those questions, then I need to choose that method so I can get to that goal a lot more efficiently. So it ends up saving me a lot of time. If I don't have to spend 2 weeks with an athlete when I may only have them for 6 weeks, if I don't have to spend those first 2 weeks teaching them the technical proficiency of an exercise, and I can teach them something in 1 minute and then have them performing it and adding progressive overload to those movements, whether that's loaded jumps, all different types of plyometrics. There's a lot of different movements that we can add some load to, and we can load up effectively enough to get to the goal that we're looking for. Then when I started working with a lot of combat sport athletes, I realized that most of these people had absolutely no background in strength and conditioning whatsoever. And they're already learning 10 different skill sets and 10 different sports. So they're already going to boxing practice, wrestling practice, jiu-jitsu practice. They don't need to come to the gym and learn a whole nother sport, which is Olympic weightlifting. There's so much to learn in that sport that the question that I always used to think of is, well, eventually you can't add more progressive overload to jumps, so how are you going to continually load jumps? There's only so heavy you can load a med ball, or so heavy that you can add dumbbells to different jumps. And I got to the point that I said, what if you have an athlete who can hang power clean his body weight, or 1.5 times his body weight? Throwing a 30-pound med ball or landing with some 25-pound dumbbells is not really going to produce enough overload to get him stronger or more powerful if he's already that powerful. And a strength coach that I knew a couple years ago said, if you already have an MMA fighter who can hang power clean 1.5 times his body weight, how powerful is powerful enough? Why are you working on making him more powerful? Is hang power cleaning 1.75 times his body weight going to really make him a better fighter? Or is that bucket already full, and are there other things that we can be working on? And that was something that really made me take a step back and look at the Olympic lifts and say, am I only doing this because this is how I was taught and because I just think it might be really good? And then as I started looking back at my training programs from when I was a strength coach in college, I realized that I had female athletes that were doing Olympic lifts for 10 weeks in our off season with the barbell or with 2.5 pound plates on each side, doing snatches and all these movements that they weren't really overloading or producing any more power after 10 weeks. So I could have gotten them to their goal a lot better, and some of them just weren't strong enough that it didn't really matter about the power that I was trying to develop. I needed to get them stronger first. So that's why I don't really use Olympic lifts very often. I do occasionally have athletes, college athletes and professional athletes who come from backgrounds where they've trained the Olympic movements, they really like them, and they're very proficient. In that case, they're great exercises and I will use them in my programs. However, if I'm gonna have to teach the movement, it's gonna take me more than 10, 15 minutes to get you to a point where we can actually start to load that movement up and start getting better. Unless you really want to learn it or you need it for your sport, we're probably going to find a different exercise that I can help get you to your goal a lot more efficiently. So that's my thoughts on Olympic lifting. That's why when I do use them with my athletes, and for the most part, I don't use a lot of Olympic weightlifting with my athletes, not because they're not beneficial exercises, but because I can get them to their goal a lot quicker and using a different method. I'm Coach PJ. Thanks for checking out this video. I hope this helped you guys out. Make sure you check out my next video. See you then.